Right, we're back live with you tonight, Joan in Focus, and thanks for staying on. Send to this now, the South African Association of Public Administration and Management is hosting its annual conference in collaboration with the University of South Africa and the Tshwane University of Technology. This is happening in Ekurhuleni. The theme this year is Repositioning African Governments in the Changing Global Order and Disorder. Stakeholders, policymakers, scholars, all gathering there to discuss some of the opportunities and challenges that are within the public administration and management sphere in the context, of course, of a changing global order. Let's get some more insight on that conference, and we are joined by the board member of the South African Association of Public Administration and Management, Kgabo, Morifi. Kgabo, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Let's begin firstly by just zeroing in and focusing on the theme itself, repositioning of African governments. Of course, the challenges are generic challenges that we are facing in South Africa, but I'm sure they would apply throughout the African continent. Why a call for a discussion on repositioning African governments? What are the challenges faced by African governments that need us to have this conversation?
I think, thank you so much, Kgabo. I think we've got to have a discussion. This is what prompted SAAPAM to really consider having a conversation around the positioning of African governments in terms of, looking at the changing global order or disorder. So amongst, challenges that we face, most African governments that face around, building, the commitment to build state capacity so that the state is able to really discharge its responsibilities in terms of ensuring that, you advance the public interest and the common good. But most importantly, if you were to look at some of the challenges that we face, you would find that, for instance, pundits in South Africa also arguing that South Africa, others are saying that we are a failed state. Now, these are issues that really have to concern us as the South African Association of Public Administration and Management, that in a country where we are located, we have a situation where the economy is stagnant. There is, a high level of unemployment, huge inequality between those that have and those that do not have. And part of that is exacerbated also by the challenge of the energy crisis that we have in, South Africa. Now, while this is happening, it's taking place in South Africa, the global order is changing. You have seen the development towards the BRICS summit, the type of discussions that were there, but also followed by the G20 thereafter. There has been demonstration that there is a significant, shift in terms of the global order. And what becomes important is what should be the role of African states in responding to the challenges of the future. So this is where we are coming from.
Yeah. What sort of complexities are we talking about? Complexities of globalization could be broad. Things that are being brought on by BRICS could be broad. If we were to distill and zoom into some of, for example, when you talk of technological advancements, what challenges come to your mind in the context, for example, of now, today, faced with massive disasters in the Western Cape, and how municipalities there are using technology to intervene in service delivery?
So, quite correctly as you put it, Kgabo, we've got to have a conversation. This is where SAAPAM really has to play, an important role, because SAAPAM has to create that platform where public intellectuals, these are intellectuals that are coming from universities, who would have investigated some of these issues and would have contributed to the existing body of knowledge in terms of, trying to understand and make us understand what the challenges are. They have to meet with public officials, and part of the responsibility that we have is to create that platform. But that platform has to be about really a commitment towards building state capacity And what we mean by, building a state capacity, we are necessarily saying that intellectuals that are in our universities have got a responsibility and a role to play in ensuring that we build the state and we build capacity of our country. So, because if you look at the concept of a developmental state, it really talks about the state being at the center of economic development and not leaving it to the dictates of the market. But if you have to, build the capacity of the state to that level, it means that you have the responsibility to ensure that part of the state, the functionaries, I talk about bureaucrats, have to be the most qualified in terms of, discharging their responsibility. Look at the state of our local government. There are reports that still we have challenges around even appointing the right people for the positions. Yeah. And this is why our state of local government is in this disarray. And we've got to have a conversation, and part of that conversation is to talk truth to power and talk about some of these challenges, but not just from an ivory tower perspective, but as part of also bringing solutions that can be able to help our country, become better in some of these issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah. Former President Thabo Mbeki asked a rather important question to yourselves as the South African Association of Public Administration and Management. Do you hang your heads in shame when you see good governance going out the window in our municipalities or in public administration at least? Do you hang your heads in shame when you're seeing effective service delivery non-existent and there's no professionalism? As you're mentioning now, there's no input, for example, from scholars. There might be, maybe it's just being ignored. And there's just no practice of good governance. Is it something that says to you have failed in your mandate as people who are supposed to be promoting all these things?
I think partly we have to take the responsibility that we perhaps a demonstration of what is happening in the country is that we still have a long way to go in terms of really building good governance and also building capacity of the state to be efficient in terms of how it renders services to its people. We take that responsibility to say that we have to really act with speed, because President Thabo Mbeki, and I had an opportunity also to have a conversation with President Mbeki. Amongst the things that we've had a discussion about, and which is consistent with the message that he delivered today in the conference, is that how do we build this state? We have a challenge that, there's a number of things that I can give an example of. If you were to look at the situation in the city of Tshwane around the water treatment plant in Rooiwal, in Hammanskraal, it's a demonstration. So out of the problem of water, an economy has been established where people, in terms of the water tankers, there is now a business around water tankers and no appreciation in terms of really responding to the issues. And if you're to look at also the rise, you look at how the security industry is rising. It's a reflection also that crime levels are higher and that people have lost confidence in the capacity of the state to deal with some of these challenges. Yeah. You look at also the issue that happened when President Zuma was arrested. The aftermath, the taxi industry had to play a role. Where was the police ministry? Where was the military and other state law enforcement agencies? Now, this is a demonstration that once you allow the taxi industry to play that role, it means that the state is so fragile that it has lost its capacity to address the important issues that are affecting the people of this country. Now, these are some of the issues that I believe this conference is going to deliberate on to ensure that we tell government straight that you have to really, deal with some of these important issues before the state before the people loses confidence in the state. I mean,
do you think the people are not there yet? Do you think it's still reversible? I mean, the thing that former president was talking about, one, there are those who are already, I mean, there are organizations, parties who are going to be contesting in 2024. And you look at their policies, they clearly tell you, eliminate the public sector in anything. For example, in energy, take them out. In transportation, take them out. Bring in the private sector. They are saying where public sector fails, private sector will succeed. And former president warning against that, saying that is, as far as is concerned, counter-revolutionary. But two, total liberation of private sector, of private capital to do business as they want, raise prices, put them where they want, get their products to the people that want to buy them. That's what we are seeing already happening. And the push to say, no, reduce this thing of social spending. Are these trends reversible, and how do we reverse them?
In order to reverse them, we've got to be deliberate. Get the right people to do the work. In government, government has to take a decision that we have to make sure that amongst the top echelons in terms of the leadership of the government, we've got to have qualified people who are able to, with a record of also, rendering services to the people. Now, once we have a situation, if you look at the state of our municipalities, especially those that are in the rural margins of our society, of our country, you have a situation where the people that are appointed, for instance, for a municipal manager positions are not people that are qualified. In fact, in my conversation with President Becky, there was just a scenario about a person who, in some municipality in the Eastern Cape, where the person was appointed. This person is known to be a thief. This person is a known person who steals. But this person is appointed in a position of a municipal manager. And when you ask the reasons why some of these people are appointed, is because they are good thieves, so they can hide. Now, if you have that type of a situation in the country, we've got to be worried that who are these public servants? What are they appointed for? Are they really public servants? Now, we've got to really have these discussions. The people on the ground, they know about some of these issues. And we've got to really be honest about them, because South Africa, I call the South African democracy a fragile democracy because it is still new. 30 years, you can say, you look at the background where we come from, and you look at the type of challenges that we have, we are still a fragile democracy. Now, we've got to, be deliberate in terms of how do we address some of these issues. How do we appoint people that are known to be notorious in society, who are known to be thieves, who can steal public money and know how to hide? It's unheard of in the democratic dispensation. Now, these are some of the things that we've got to be deliberate about in order to address some of the challenges that our people face. Yeah. And part of building state capacity is to appoint people. The Minister of Public Service and Administration, Minister Kivitz, spoke about the professionalization of the state. Now, we believe this has to leave, a lip service, so that we begin to be practical in terms of how do we deliver this professionalization of the state, the public, the public service, including a local government in our country. Now, we've got to be deliberate and make sure that right people are appointed, and we get people that are sophisticated, who understand what to do in government.
Kgabo Morifi with us with the South African Association for Public Administration and Management. He's the member of the board there. So before the break, you were talking about this question of attracting the right kind of talent into these spaces. I had a conversation not so long ago with the Minister of Kgabo, who I believe, by the way, will be part of your panel conversations tomorrow, around, for example, how you convince graduates to come into public administration. One, because of the political dynamics that exist there, but two, because of the, I suppose, the incentives that are given to graduates to come into these spaces, being, of course, ones that don't encourage them to actually jump at the opportunity. How do we change that?
I think part of the responsibility of that to make, government the employer of choice. Not only government, but also our universities, because if everyone is to go to government, therefore our universities are likely not to be having people that would be able to make a significant, contribution to the body of knowledge. Because as those that are practitioners, as they go to government, we've got also the responsibility of preserving talent to make sure that we take forward scholarship, we study human behavior, the practice in government, and so on and so forth. But part of really, inspiring confidence in people to join government is by government being, flexible. Part of the challenges, unfortunately, I would have to expose this, that I'm one of the youngest people who are serving in the senior management of government. But the challenge is that I'm a minority in that space. And when you look at the thinking around how do we approach issues, itself is deeply problematic. I mean, COVID has demonstrated that a number of opportunities that government has to really look into. But you look at how we respond, how government responds to some of these issues, you realize that there is a fundamental challenge. Now, you've got to be deliberate in terms of making sure that part of what government's response should be, a technologically advanced, section of society that is able to look at what is it that is, progressive in terms of, a work environment. I mean, COVID has taught us better that you can, you can work remotely, you can attract talent by, such, platforms. We've got to really investigate some of these things. And the other important thing is that how we regulate government. I believe that, especially in terms of senior management in government, it is tailor-made in such a way that those that begin to serve in the senior management would have served in government for a very long time. And now that itself is deeply problematic, because you would have a situation where a young person at the age of 30 may not necessarily be eligible to serve in the senior management of government. And that creates a serious challenge. We've got to really look at things differently. And I believe that presentations that are going to come from SAAPAM would talk to some of these issues, that part of creating the appetite for young people to also look into the possibility of joining government, we've got to make government flexible to attract this talent. Majority of our people that we produce in our universities, they do not find joy in working for a government in South Africa. So instead, they choose to go abroad, where they are utilized in various capacities. But how we've got to really build this thing where we can build, where we can have our people really choosing government as, a choice for employment. So it's a number of things that we have to look into, Kgabo, that I believe we can, begin to reflect about.
It's the 22nd time, I believe, you are gathering in such a fashion, and we are at the position and at a point where people don't trust these gatherings anymore. They call them talk shops, right? If we were to come out of this particular iteration of the annual conference and say we are going out there and we want to see at least 2 or 3 things of this conference being implemented, what would that be for SAAPAM?
I think we've got to build capacity of the state. We look at ESCOM, you look at our state-owned enterprises. Sometimes you can have a belief that some of these things are done deliberately so that they are weakened, so that private sector can come into play so that they begin to privatize some of the institutions. So what do we deliberate? Let's fix the energy crisis that we have. I believe the Minister of Electricity, Hosien Soramohopa, gave an example of one power station in Komati that as part of looking into green energy, the decommissioning of some of these power stations, we've got to really investigate it thoroughly so that we do not, as we try to venture into debates around global climate change, green economy, we do not lose sight of our strategic perspective of delivering for the people of this country reliable energy for our country. Beyond that, you look at various state institutions. We've got to build capacity in some of these state-owned PRASA. You look at the PRASA, you look at Transnet, you can name them, DNL, and many other state-owned enterprises. We've got to be deliberate in terms of how do we ensure that they are stable so that there's capacity and preservation of the future of our country relies largely on some of the success of these institutions. So I believe that as part of leading this conference, part of it would be to ensure that we recruit as many young people and talent that can be able to ensure the future of the state. The future of the state. I was having a conversation earlier today with the MEC of Gauteng Education, Matume Tshwane. He says over 70% of the senior management of Gauteng Education, in the next 8 years, they would not be there because of age. So meaning that we've got to be deliberate in recruiting some of the young people to come to the space, to the center, to be able to be the future of government. So we have the responsibility to ensure that we build on the future that we want to see going forward. So SAAPAM conference creates that platform where we can, public intellectuals in our universities can meet government officials so that we have robust discussions around how we can improve the efficiency and optimize the efficiency of the state going forward.
Kgabo, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That is Kgabo Morifi there. He is a board member for SAAPAM, part of those who are gathered in Ekurhuleni to deliberate on the state of public administration and management, but also come up with some tangible key things of what we can do forward to improve, one, promotion of good governance, but also improve the tactics and innovative ways in which we bring about service delivery and ensuring that, much capacity is actually coming from public service and people don't lose trust in public service. You can weigh in on those conversations that we've had in the last hour on 072-110-5584, or you can send us a message on X at Newzroom 405.